Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
That's bang.
I mean, this is what it's all about, Ken Flo. Live and in color a few hours after the UFC 301 pay-per-view has expired. Happy Cinco de Mayo, if that applies. It is Sunday, May 5th, the year 2024. Good to have you with us live for episode 485 of the A&F Florian podcast. Live from Rio de Janeiro. Ken Flo, where are you at? Like Los Angeles, California?
I am indeed. I'm in Los Angeles, California, doing some seminars for the next week or so. Doing one today at Uprise MMA in Marina Del Rey, and
Nice.
Yeah, do a little MMA, man.
So are you, and I can't see you all that well. Are you, I mean, I can see your face, but the room you're in looks absolutely stunning. Are you at a residence or is that a hotel?
I'm at a residence. It's
Okay.
a pretty
All right.
badass residence.
Okay. Yeah, it looks fucking badass, you know.
It's not terrible.
I'm sitting here in this musty hotel room in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and hopefully the Wi-Fi holds up. But this is something that we really enjoy doing when the schedules align, to be able to come on with you guys immediately after a pay-per-view when everything is fresh. Now, one thing we don't have the benefit of is maybe watching back Alexandre Pantoja and Steve Erceg, which was a close fight. But we got a lot to get into. We're going to go at least an hour today, recap the fuck out of UFC 301. Sorry to the gentleman in the room next door. A lot of us were up drinking until like 7 o'clock in the morning. It's 12:35 p.m. here in Brazil. So we're hurting for certain. So we're going to recap this pay-per-view. Ray Longo is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. It appears as though Merab Dvalishvili now has a date for his championship fight against Sean O'Malley. Not sure what that says about Bilal Muhammad, like what is going on July 27th. But most of today's show, of course, is going to surround UFC 301. And then later in the week, I'll be back with Brian Petrie, his predictions, as well as his bets for UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Nascimento. Ken Flo's going, are you doing one of those like dark retreats like Aaron Rodgers and Yuri Prohaska where you deprive yourself from the sun for 4 days, or what? You're doing something.
Dude, I might. That actually sounds like a good time. I'm crazy enough to try it. I'm going to be out in the desert a little bit, hanging out. So yeah.
All right. Look at how big he is, Cody. This fucking guy. So Kenny's going to be in the desert. It was sort of a scheduled break in our Anakin Florian podcast routine. So Kenny is going to send us his bets for this weekend, his $1,000. But Petrie and I will be back with you on Wednesday or so. All right, enough about that. Headlines brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. One thing that I keep coming back to when it comes to the still undisputed UFC flyweight champion, Alexandre Pantoja, Ken Flo, feels like the most relentless dude in the game. Equal parts skill and will, and it seems like his will is just as important as his appreciable skills. He wins this fight by unanimous decision, 48-47 times 2. The dissenting judge did give him 4 of 5 rounds, 49-46. As I was watching it play out, Kenny, and having the word damage front of mind, I said on the broadcast I thought there was an argument to be made that Steve Erceg won rounds 2, 3, and 4. I have no problem with a Pantoja scorecard 3-2. I thought it was a fascinating flyweight championship fight. I thought Erceg certainly proved himself to be, while not a complete fighter at this stage of his career or a totally developed fighter at this stage of his career, he's ready for the elites at flyweight. He's going to be a real problem, but Pantoja's still the standard, at least for now. What'd you think of the main event, Ken Flo?
You summed it up beautifully, my man. Listen, I thought it really delivered, and I think a lot of that was kind of how I saw it, surprisingly. I think the difference really was the experience of Pantoja. I think you're also accurate to point out his toughness and his tenaciousness, because I think that's a big part of his game plan. It's a big part of his strategy. It's what makes him successful. And he'd be on my all-star nasty prick team because he fights that way. It's like he doesn't care. He's there to kick your ass and find a way to win no matter what. His positioning also, I thought you guys did a great job of mentioning. how he was just always a step ahead once they hit the ground. And Erceg was doing a lot of the great things. Pantoja was just always one step ahead of him, showing his experience and his prowess when he gets top position. It was similar. It's kind of a blend of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling, similar to what like Khabib does. But dude, it's just as impressive. He's so efficient.
Steve Erceg is a really good scrambler, and perhaps it was his confidence in his scrambling ability that cost him this fight, because had he won that 5th round, he would be the world champion. And when you think about these nations, Brazil and Australia, and how much support there is nationalistically for these athletes, like, I can't even profess to people, and Steve Erceg is going to be a big star, but if this dude went back to fucking Perth as the world champion, Kenny, like, it just... You can't walk down the street in that country once you realize MMA success. So I do think Steve Erceg will be heard from in the future. But this Pantoja, man, I still feel like he's underrated and underappreciated as a UFC champion. He's got like 30 pro fights. He's never been finished. I want to talk a little bit about the big elbow in the fight. Now, there were a lot of elbows that landed by Steve Erceg. But, bro, I felt like Alexandre Pantoja almost threw up on the stool after being concussed by one of those elbows, I think, in round 3. And if you throw up on the stool, fight's over, you know?
Yeah.
So I felt like twice he was about to fucking upchuck.
Man.
And he seemed to hold it back. But again, to fight the 4th and 5th rounds, the way he did, even though he lost the 4th round, I just have buckets of respect for his championship medal and just his overall ability as a UFC champion.
The toughness came into play here. Why? Because it was such a great technical chess matchup. And sometimes it's things like that that makes the difference. You don't want to lead with it, but if you need it, you want to have that in your back pocket. And Pantoja has toughness for days. There's no question about it. I had him winning rounds 1, 3, and 5. I thought it was pretty clear, and I had Erceg winning round 2 and 4. So again, I think the experience edge was the difference, the grappling transitions, the follow-ups. That's where Pantoja showed a sharpness, and Erceg is going to have to learn from it. But like you said, he showed he's at the level. His striking, we kind of knew he was going to be the better striker, the better counter puncher, and I think he was certainly that. I just don't think he was expecting that relentless approach from Pantoja. Pressure, and for him to be so successful with his takedowns.
Yeah. No, and I think your scorecard mirrors a lot of those that are out there. Tremendous respect for both of these athletes. I am really curious to see Steve Erceg rebuild from here. I mean, this dude could be featured as soon as August in his native Perth. You could have him fight Brandon Royval or one of the guys near the top. But, as we were saying, like Steve Erceg, as long as he was competitive, and he was beyond competitive, but as long as he was competitive, there really wasn't much downside in accepting this first UFC championship opportunity on relatively short notice. I mean, he had what amounted to a full camp, but, it came shortly after this the Matt Schnell win for Steve Erceg. But congrats to Alexandre Pantoja. Let us now hear from the still UFC flyweight champion on how he felt things went down at UFC 301 last night.
One more time, now in my town, in my city. What special moment. This kid, this Australian is so tough. Who bring this guy here? He's so young, so talented. I know this guy can be a champion one day, 100%. What a tough fight, And I'll know 100% this arena, this city, make me keep going today because he didn't stop, He defended all my attacks. And what a fight, I think we finished the night with one of the best fights of the night, What a back and forth. He threw very good elbows. But I think champions is born like that, You need one more thing to be a champion, and I bring this today.
If you're not as mentally, emotionally, and physically tough as Alexandre Pantoja, you're going back to South Florida without your world title, period.
Yeah.
And to hear him talk about how he used the environment in Rio to his advantage, I absolutely take him at his word. Kenny, this dude last competed in Brazil, you probably heard us say, in 2013. He had never competed in his home nation as a UFC fighter. He even reached out to his father during the week to see if maybe his estranged father would make it to this live event, right? But when you hear him talk about Steve Erceg and everything that he did well, it dovetails with everything Pahumpa said to us here in Rio, Kenny, publicly and privately, they felt like this was the toughest guy for them, probably matchup-wise, in this flyweight division, and they weren't wrong.
There's no title contender that you can ever take it easy on. There's so much at stake. The fighters are improving all the time. They're all hungry if they're even at that level. And Erceg definitely could have won that fight. He had his moments, a couple mistakes here and there, a couple lost scrambles here and there. And that was the difference. But as I found out, sometimes it's very little things that makes the difference. And I think that little difference at the end was the toughness and the experience from Pantoja. But that's a true champion right there, and also very well aware of his competitor and how dangerous they were, and everything like you were talking about, from Pena to everybody else to Mike Brown. They were talking about how they really thought Erceg was a legitimate threat, and they took him seriously, and it shows.
So part of the reason maybe that arena wasn't as loud last night as previous shows in Brazil was because Madonna was doing a concert on Copacabana Beach, and 1.6 million Brazilians actually ended up being there. But I found myself thinking, Kenny, at the beginning of the main event, that Steve Erceg, while on the hostile home turf of Alexandre Pantoja and in the belly of the beast, but it didn't seem too intense an environment for a title challenger. And that being said, like, this Steve Erceg is so even keel, bro. Like, I'm just not sure what's going to phase this guy. I think his mentality for fighting is outstanding.
He's a cool customer, man. A very cool customer. I shit my pants in the Ultimate Fighter finale. I'll admit that. But not everyone is going to react to pressure in those ways. And I think Steve Erceg showed that he has the emotional stability, the maturity to get back there and perhaps change the result. He definitely has the skill, and he definitely has the potential to be a champion. There's no question about that. He had an awesome performance, and just seeing some of his post-fight interviews, yes, we both have big noses, but I would flash back to when I lost against Sean Shirk, and or when my first title fight, and how little I knew I had fought my ass off, but just knowing it wasn't enough, like that. Champion just had more. I gotta train more, and it seemed like that's the kind of reality that he was facing. But he's going to come back stronger. There's no question.
All right, so Ken Flo and many others had this thing 2-2 going into that fifth and final deciding round. Wayward decision by Steve Erceg as far as his fight IQ is concerned. I think, according to many, going for that fifth round takedown. And let us hear from Steve Erceg after the fight on that decision and that deciding fifth round.
I really thought if I could take him down, I ate up some time on the ground and make him even more tired, and then I went on the feet more. So I probably would have done exactly the same thing. Just next time to be better at it.
Thanks to Full Send for the audio there, and no doubt Steve Erceg is going to be better. Now, I am not suggestive that we're going to run this thing back and have an immediate rematch, Kenny. This was Alexandre Pantoja's second title defense. There are names lurking. Manel Kopp figures to have at least one more fight. Amir Albazi is on the mend. Brandon Royval, of course, is coming off a win over Brandon Moreno, but nobody really, I think, with respect to Raw Dog, wants to see Royval and Pantoja again right now. I mean, Cody's going to populate our private chat here with the UFC flyweight rankings, Kenny. But for me, my appetite, and I'm not suggesting it's going to be an immediate rematch, but my appetite for Pantoja Erceg 2, while not insatiable, is pretty fucking high right now. I want to see these guys do it again.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great fight. There's no question about it. And there's so many great fights in that division. I think Manel Kopp is an interesting challenge. I'm not sure he can consistently stop those takedowns against someone like Pantoja, but more than anything else, he needs to consistently make the weight, right, to show that he should be in that right weight class. So, let's see. I mean,
so Brandon Royval's the number one ranked contender right now. Brandon Moreno is taking some time off. We may not see him the rest of 2024. Amir Albazi is injured. He's number 3. Kai Kara-France is 4. Alex Perez is 5. I thought maybe they could do Steve Erceg and Alex Perez potentially at UFC 305 in Perth in August. I do think you're going to see Erceg featured on pay-per-view in Perth, but I don't think he's going to get an immediate championship opportunity. And Pantoja, says he's going to take some time off, and rightfully so. Since he became the champion, he's been a workhorse, and he turned it around pretty quickly to defend against Royval and now Erceg. So it's going to be some time, but I think Kenny Erceg's probably going to be favored against most of these guys. Might be the best boxer in this flyweight division right now. So
he's a tremendous counter shot fighter, no question about that. From his elbows in tight to his punches in tight, he's very clean, just a very clean striker. Again, Mokaev, I think, would be an interesting challenge.
Oh yeah,
wrestling. However, Erceg can get it on the ground too, man. He's dangerous everywhere. He's good.
Yeah, Erceg is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he looked to be that in this fight against Alexandre Pantoja. But you're right to inject Muhammad Mokaev's name into the mix. I'm just not sure they're rushing him necessarily. He's undefeated. Yeah. He's 23 years of age, but the flyweight division is ripe with talent, and at least right now they are all still chasing the man, Rio de Janeiro's Alexandre Pantoja. All right. The King of Rio, Jose Aldo, returns to competition about 10 months after being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. Dude comes out with a fucking crown, Ken Flo, huh?
I love it. He's finally accepting himself in that position. No, he is so damn good, dude. He is so good. It's unbelievable the things that he does, and the fact that he does evolve. He is trying to get better at this, and that to me is one of the better indications of where a fighter is at his stage of his career. When you get a fighter who no longer wants to learn, who no longer has that hunger to train hard, it's probably time to wrap it up. Don't just show up for a paycheck. Aldo is not just showing up for a paycheck. That is clear. He looked as technical as ever. He was putting together some amazing skills. And then a third round, he's like, all right, son, let me show you what MMA is all about. These are all the things that I can do. I'm at a different level than you, period.
So Jonathan Martinez came in having won 6 straight fights and over a lot of good competition. And he's on the wrong end of the judges' scorecards in this one, 30-27 times 3. But when I think about Jonathan Martinez against Adrian Yanez, his last time out, there was just an intensity and just a different look in his eyes. And I'm not suggesting that maybe he over-respected Jose Aldo, but you need to be Jonathan Martinez in terms of your pace and your pressure and your kicks and your offense, right out of the chute. And I don't know. I mean, you can speak to this, right? Even as a broadcaster, sometimes you're flat on fight night. The greatest thing about Floyd Mayweather was that he was never flat on fight night. Even when he got off to slow starts against someone like Sugar Shane Mosley, he always was able to be great late. And I don't know, man. I feel for Jonathan Martinez because Jose Aldo beat a guy that was all the rage and closing in on the top 5 in this division, and he just dominated him over 3 rounds, essentially.
Oh, well, John, I'm glad you brought up Floyd Mayweather. Now, Floyd Mayweather could only be that and do that because he's so technically superior to you. I feel like Aldo is kind of that similar guy. He's so technically superior to most guys that he can still outclass you. I don't know. It was just with Jonathan Martinez. I think you're right. I think the worst thing you can do to a technician like Aldo is allow him to get momentum, because when he picks that up and he's confident and he's comfortable, he does what he does to you like he did to him in the third round. As he gets more comfortable, he's just going to pick you apart. And you have to make Aldo uncomfortable early. And I think either he respected Aldo too much or Aldo just kind of was able to manage the fight a lot better than him.
So I was in the gym before the fights. I shave my head. I go to the gym and some woman walks in and she asks me if I'm Jose Aldo. It's the greatest moment of my life. Greatest fucking moment of my life. Being compared
she saw
to
your
Jose
footwork,
Aldo.
Dude, is what it is. She
That's
saw
that.
that.
Yeah, she saw my
dude, your footwork
there.
was on point, by the way. That video. I mean, you have elite footwork, John. I'm not gonna lie.
Kenny. I appreciate that. I've been paying so much money for Dominic Cruz's footwork drills. It's finally fucking paying off, But Jose Aldo, man, he's still in his mid to late 30s. Where does he go from here? This was the last fight on his UFC contract. We know he has competed twice under the Shooto Brazil boxing banner. He had the opportunity maybe to do a long-term deal with the UFC or a longer-term deal with the UFC in advance of this fight, and he did not do that. But Kenny, Like, he came in having won 3 of 4. The only loss for him dating to the pandemic was against Merab Dvalishvili. Like I said in a post-fight hit with Daniel Cormier, I'm not exactly sure where Sean O'Malley was last night watching this, right? But, like, Jose Aldo's right in the mix if he wants to be now at 35 again.
He's a problem, dude. The guy is a
Yeah.
problem. He continues to get better. Again, there are many champions, John, but very few masters. I say this all the time. Anytime you watch Aldo fight, you are witnessing mastery. This is not your typical fighter. He can do it all whenever he wants, how he can manage the fight. He can win it in a variety of ways. I mean, here's a Brazilian kid who had no wrestling experience, and you can't take him down. Okay, just that alone would be insane. But then he can outbox you. He can beat you in tight. He can counter you. He can kick the hell out of your legs. He has knockout power. He has flying attacks. He can submit you on the ground. He can control you on the ground. He can nullify. He has so many ways to win. And Martinez is a dangerous guy. But I think for me, once he was able to cut off the leg kicks of Martinez, or at least nullify them a little bit, he was able to turn into a boxing fight. And there's very few people that are going to win a boxing fight against someone like Jose Aldo. And I would, again, I know that Dominic Cruz fight was talked about. I would love to see. Those are two guys that have such unique styles, that are former champions, that on a technical level, many of the hardcore fans would love to watch fight individually. And putting them together, I think, would be an absolute classic.
I think that would be absolutely insane. I do think Dom would be on the wrong end of the speed equation, and hopefully my man Cruzy doesn't listen to the Anik and Florian podcast. But Jose Aldo looked faster than all the flyweights last night, Kenny. Like it feels like he's getting faster and he's getting better. And I don't want to have like the Mount Rushmore greatest of all time conversation today. I really don't. Like most people know, I believe John Jones is the greatest MMA athlete I've ever seen. But like, dude, this dude might be the fucking greatest of all time. I mean, let's be honest.
John, again, the two things that stand out to me when I fought Jose Aldo was the speed of his leg kicks. I mean, you literally blinked, he would have kicked you and he was already backing up. You're like, who the hell just hit me? So his speed was something else, but also his strength. Like I remember when I tried to take him down, and granted, I didn't have a great weight cut, but he just felt like he was fucking steel. Like, and I'm talking, I train with 185 pounders, 170 pounders, strong dudes. No one ever felt like how Jose Aldo felt. Like his hips, his legs, his ability to unite muscles at the right time. I was like, well, this is going to be an interesting fight.
That's a great line. And you can really sort of lean into that and feel that, like uniting his muscle groups for maximum effect. The dude is just unbelievable. And to see the way his peers like you talk about this guy in such glowing terms, just a complete legend. Maybe we'll put him in the fucking Hall of Fame again. But let us now hear from Jose Aldo after a most successful return to competition last night.
I think my body still allows me. I look good, so it was like riding a bike, getting back into training. My mind and my body needed a break, and I got that. So, yeah.
Thanks to ESPN Plus. How about the maestro, Cody Merrow, putting that together, right? We get Jose Aldo talking, and he's got the interpreter there. Just beautiful stuff there by Cody. But we'll see what Jose Aldo does. You know, I am expectant that there will be at least one more fight in the UFC, if not 4 to 5, right? But my goodness, man. And for Jonathan Martinez, real quickly, you know, Mark Montoya, I think, did everything in his power in that corner to try to, you know, extract a little bit more out of his guy, but he just was not the better man on this night. You know, I'm not sure it would have mattered.
Aldo, I think, is that good. I think Martinez did a good job in round 3 of being more aggressive, but then you saw him kind of pay for that aggression against Jose Aldo when he really started to hurt him. I mean, some of those knees were just devastating. But yeah, I mean, what I think about also is how the hell is Aldo consistently making this weight at 135 pounds? Like there was a time when I fought him, one of the things that made me feel better was looking at him cutting weight and seeing how miserable he looked. That was at 145.
Right.
So the fact that he's making 135 and looks great and it is still performing great is still very, very impressive.
Last thing I'll say, just in terms of this bantamweight division in which they are all chasing Sean O'Malley. His next title defense is going to come against Merab Dvalishvili, who largely dominated Jose Aldo a couple of years ago. Corey Sandhagen is lurking. There are other guys, of course, in and around that top of division, right? But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, Kenny, that at some point, if Sean O'Malley is able to cool off Merab, that they do Sean O'Malley and Jose Aldo. You got to think that Sean would be of an competitive nature for that fight. Like, that's as big a fight as Sean O'Malley can get. I mean, you can argue that's bigger than an Ilia Topuria fight.
I agree. I mean, you look at how long Aldo was a champion for. Many people all over the world know exactly what Jose Aldo is, who he is, how he fights. And I think that would be an extremely sellable fight, perhaps one of the more sellable fights in that division, if not the most. So, I think it's warranted. Again, let's go back. Before that loss to Merab, Jose Aldo was on a 3-fight winning streak, looking fantastic. Yeah. And I would say in the Merab fight, I don't think he got blown out of the water. That was a very close fight with him being pressed up against the cage and kind of out-volumed by Merab. But it wasn't a massacre. Like, I thought Merab looked way better, dominated Cejudo way more than he did anywhere close to what he did against Aldo. So, yeah, I mean, you could argue for that, given everything he's done in that division. And I think it's a very fascinating fight from a technical perspective as well.
Yeah. And Merab was also more dominant against Petr Yan than he was against Jose Aldo. Right now, Merab is number 1, Corey Sandhagen 2, Petr Yan 3, and it goes on down from there. All right, plenty more to come on this live edition of the Anik and Florian podcast as we recap UFC 301. But as many of you know, the NBA playoffs are heating up, and so is the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, unofficial sports betting partner of the NBA. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and much more. Don't miss out as the NBA postseason rolls onward. And right now, the Pacers catching 6 points at the Knicks in Game 1 of their Eastern Conference semifinal series. How about the Minnesota Timberwolves taking Game 1 from the Denver Nuggets? Nugs favored by 5 in Game 2 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. And if you are new to DraftKings, new customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, not now, but right now. Use the code AFPOD. That is code AFPOD for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/bball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. I mean, did I not read enough fucking promos last night on pay-per-view? Surprised I got through that one cleanly. Speaking of cleanliness, let's see what the Ray Longo aesthetic looks like on a Sunday morning. Let's get to the star of the show.
Oh, why do I have black on something on top of this thing?
Black don't crack. That looks like a television. Oh,
Ooh. Piece of tape hanging there?
Called a lens cap.
No, it's not.
It's called a lens cap. Hey, Ray.
Yes.
Your shot looks like shit, but it's good to see as always. There you go. There you go. Hey, you like my shirt?
Oh, I see what I'm doing. Hold on a second. Wow.
Hey, I like it.
That.
I like it.
Come on.
John.
I love it.
I've been wearing this Ray Longo Minute shirt all over Rio.
Wow. Anybody say anything? They notice?
Nope, not anybody.
I told you it's a big seller.
Well, thank you for being with us on a Sunday. Obviously, no Anik and Florian podcast is complete without the star of the show. And before I came on, I saw a post, I believe, on the Home of Fight Instagram page suggesting that Merab has a date against Sean O'Malley at the Sphere. I think it might be UFC 306, September 14th, O'Malley and Merab. So Bilal Muhammad can't get a date for fucking July 27th, but it looks as though your guy is going to fight Sean O'Malley on September 14th, Raymond.
Well, that's good. I mean, I didn't hear it, but I was counting on September, so that makes sense.
So we were just talking about.
Kenny looks really good today. What'd you do? Makeup? You have a makeup artist over there? Seriously?
I don't know. No, I do not.
It's got a little shade red. You got like some color.
A little bit, maybe.
So Shogun Hua was announced last night that he'll be inducted into the 2024 UFC Hall of Fame class, and there was a shot of Ken Flo in the feature interviewing Shogun in the octagon at like UFC 8 or something, whatever it was.
You're
Kenny
crazy.
looked like 12. So I thought he looked better actually in the feature with Shogun last night than he looks right now. But
I agree.
A lot of people look better when they're younger, John. Thanks for bringing that up. How many years ago was that? 30?
It sucks getting old. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
It's fucking
so we were just talking about Jose Aldo.
Woo!
And the
Love
only
it.
guy to beat him over the last 4 years is Merab Dvalishvili. And he was the underdog here against Jonathan Martinez. Martinez had been on a real violent streak. He had won 6 fights in a row. What you make of Jose Aldo last night, Ray? It's a young man's game, I thought. Maybe not.
I thought he hit it out of the park. Dean said something that maybe was correct. He might have had that idol worship going. I mean, who knows? But he definitely froze. He was biting on the fakes. He didn't look like himself. And that has to do with Jose Aldo was just accurate, beautiful straight punches. When he got inside, the hooks was short. He picked his spots. The guy allowed him to pick his spots, and I think that's what Montoya was trying to get him to do. Is you got to force this fight now. And I do think Jose Aldo in a 3-round fight is going to be hard to beat. I think endurance wise, it looked like he was starting to either he knew he had to fight one or he was getting a little tired. But I think 4 and 5 is always hard for him if he's getting pressed a little bit. But he was able to control the pace of this fight. And he looked absolutely beautiful.
Man, he looked prime. He really did look prime.
He did look great.
My jaw was dropped for half of that fight. And I'm not sure things would have been any different in this particular matchup if we had been scheduled for a 5-round co-main event. What'd you think of the main event? Oh, go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
No, I think 5 rounds. I mean, I think he would have had a better chance. I think that I don't think he's a 5-round fighter anymore, but for 3 rounds, he looked absolutely beautiful. He really did. I think he's going to be tough to beat unless you blend in the wrestling like Merab did and just try to gas him out that way.
So I want to get your thoughts on the main event. Alexandre Pantoja remains the UFC flyweight champion over a very game Steve Erceg. And I don't even know if I want your scorecard necessarily, but I'm just curious how close you felt the fight was and what were your thoughts sort of going into that 5th and final round?
I thought it was at the very least 2-2 going into the 5th round. I thought Erceg, it was his fight to win or lose. I mean, I don't know. He definitely, obviously, if you're basing that fight on damage, he 100% won that fight. He did the more damage. Pantoja kind of blitzed him in spurts, but never really could get any offense going on the outside. And I thought Erceg, with the takedowns in the last round came back to bite him in the ass. I think you guys were saying that on the broadcast.
Yeah.
It was his fight to win or lose, and I think that's where the inexperience probably bit him in the ass a little bit. But he definitely deserves to be there. He looks like that's going to be a great growing fight for him. He got 5 rounds out with a guy that's at the top of his game. It looks like the scrambles from Pantoja were phenomenal, though. And I think that's what broke him. I think he said, nobody does that to him with the wrestling, and he got out scrambled bad every time. That kid was Pantoja on the floor was definitely a half step ahead of him in every direction. And that probably is the difference in the fight, because between the elbows and the punches, he definitely did the damage. But Pantoja, I'm not arguing either way, but the kid that was a great fight for the kid.
And Pantoja did do a long form interview with Full Send, and he was really sort of discouraged in terms of how he handled some of those scrambles. At times, he absolutely got out scrambled by Steve Erceg. Kenny, I don't love to say things. Go ahead, Ray. Sorry,
the other thing is too, before I thought he did great in the scrambles, but I tell you, Pantoja's chin, I didn't realize was that dude. His chin held up unreal in that fight because he got cracked and he didn't even, he no-sold the shit out of everything. So hats off to Pantoja. Kept coming forward.
Too. Erceg's got a good jaw too.
Yeah. I mean, that was a really good, competitive, close fight.
And excuse me, Erceg obviously down on his ability in some of those scrambles. I thought
Oh,
he
yeah.
scrambled
Oh, yeah,
well
yeah.
at times, but in round 5, he was on the wrong end of those.
Ooh.
Kenny, I don't love to say things like unequivocally, I think Steve Erceg is going to be the champion, but you heard Pantoja suggest that he thinks Erceg is eventually going to be that guy. Like, I think he's going to knock a lot of people out, and I do think he's got a great chance to become the champion. What are your thoughts, Kenny, in terms of Erceg and just how far he can take this thing?
Well, I think so much of the advantage with guys that are already champions versus the guy that isn't a champion going for his first title is not knowing whether you are world championship material yet. Like, really, really. Can you perform when it comes down to it? And I think what Erceg's going to gain from that is that he can. He can compete with the best in the world. And if things swung a certain way, it could have been his fight. That is what's going to propel him, move him forward, get him to get better, and go for that belt again. And I think the second time, things could be very different. And this guy, he's a year into his UFC career. That
Oh,
is
yeah, not even,
amazing. And he's a good, humble dude. So I think he's going to be training hard. I don't see this as being a kid who's going to get wild. And now that he has this fame, he's going to be partying all week, So,
right.
Anyways, yes, I do. Short answer, yes.
Yeah, he looks like he's got a great future. Plus, I found out he's half Italian, so I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Guy came out to Jim Croce, bad Leroy Brown. I mean, who doesn't like this? This guy's an old soul, man. You gotta love him. Yeah, I agree with Kenny. I don't think fame's going to get to this guy's heart because even the way that his head, even the way he spoke after the fight, you could see he was very introspective. To the point of even being confused, which is I think a good thing, not a bad thing. But I think he alluded to that's what broke him is when he got out scrambled in that 5th round. I think he thought he was going to have it one way, and when it didn't go that way, but again, I think that's all experience. And when you put some of this stuff in perspective, like again, he's been in the UFC a year or less than a year. See, I think that even looking at the fight, it just makes Steve Erceg a winner to me, right?
Yeah.
It's like guys that step up and they do something that's extraordinary. Even if they don't get the win, I still think it just speaks volumes. So hats off to him. A huge fan now.
Oh, absolutely. And I am curious how history is going to reflect upon this Alexandre Pantoja era, because there have been a lot of big name, high level UFC flyweight champions. They're all going to be chasing Demetrius Johnson forever. Of course, shout out to Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. But what this kid is doing really deserves to be, I think, more appreciated than it is right now. I'm so happy that Pantoja got this weekend and fight week in Rio de Janeiro. But I still think the jury is out as to how far his star can go because he didn't bang out this arena this weekend. I mean, that is just the truth. All right. I want to get into a few other performances at UFC 301 because Ray's time is certainly as valuable as Kenny's, especially here on a Sunday. What are you doing on Cinco de Mayo, Ray? Cinco de Mayo today. Everybody, if you're in Vegas, should go to Big Ron's Paradise Cantina.
Yeah, baby. Big Ron. Let's do it, Big Ron.
Get to the cantina today. Our girl Aviva's going to be behind the bar. Everybody get to the cantina and spend a lot of money on this here Cinco de Mayo. What are you doing? Ken Flo's got fucking seminars. I'm going to go get an acai bowl to soak up the gentleman jack that is swimming around my small intestine. What are you doing today, Ray?
Same shit. Going to the gym. I'm like Groundhog Day. What are you talking about?
Yeah. 4480 Paradise Road in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Who's the bartender behind the bar?
I think Aviva's going to be behind the bar today. So everybody go in there and support. So I want to get into a few of these other performances at UFC 301 if I could.
Do it.
And I would like to begin with Caio Borralho over Paul Bearju Craig. The knockout comes at the 2:10-minute mark of round 2, Ken Flo. And don't look now, but Caio Borralho's got the second longest active win streak in this middleweight division. Him and Brendan Allen just one short of the champion Dricus du Plessis. This Brazilian's really built his career the right way, Ken Flo. He had to compete twice on season 5 of the Contender Series to get his contract. Looks like the real deal to me. What do you think?
I think he's the real deal as well. I think he's taking the right fights as well at the right times in his career, building himself more experience, more confidence. And he could go far. I think he was putting it all together. That last series, that knockout was absolutely devastating. And it shows that he can really do it all. He can finish you. He can out technique you. He can out strategize you. He can submit you. So there's a lot of things this guy can do. I thought this was a very good matchup for him as well. And, did it on the big stage, which is huge. So he's going to get some fans. This was a great way to get more support after this win.
Yeah, and I'm going to say I think the future's bright for him too. I'd like him and Brendan Allen. I think is a great. I think that's a great fight. He could really test himself. That's a big step up. I think. I mean, look, he had a guy in front of him. That guy just, man, he couldn't move his head. He just chin up in the air, straight back, like kind of painful to watch, to be honest with you. But he did exploit it finally, and he got him out of there. So hats off to him. But I think, I'd like to see him against a guy a little more cagier standing up.
Yeah.
And I think Brendan Allen's the test. And I'd love to. I think that fight seems like a great matchup to me.
Yeah, this Fighting Nerds team really has a lot of traction. This was a huge night for them. Of course, Mauricio Rufy, maybe the best pound-for-pound fighter under that banner, knocking out Jamie Malarkey. But, Kyle Bohalya is just such an impressive individual, just in terms of the way he was brought up and learning the English language and always putting over his teammates. Like, I have so many good things to say about this guy. I don't think Brendan Allen's going to fight him right now. I think Brendan Allen is on the cusp potentially of a world title fight. But the fact that he called out Jared Cannonier, Kenny, right? Like, that makes a lot of sense. Jared Cannonier, number 4 in the world. I think Cannonier might have a fight on the books, perhaps not. But Bohalya had everything going on and had a good call out ready as well.
He did. I mean, hopefully it shows the level of confidence he has. I don't think there's a whole lot of people that are like, oh, please let me fight Jared Cannonier, the fourth ranked guy. But I think it shows that he feels that he's ready for someone like that. And he also wants his shot at the elite in that weight class. So I think he's really coming into his own.
So Sean Strickland is the number 1 contender and former champion. He's going to fight Paulo Costa, who's number 7 at UFC 302. You got Robert Whittaker matched up with Khamzat Chimaev. Israel Adesanya, in theory, probably going to fight Dricus du Plessis, potentially in Perth. So Cannonier fight would seemingly make a shit ton of sense for Kyle Bohalya. Michel Pereira over Ihor Potieria gets the guillotine at 54 seconds of round 1. Kenny, what'd you make of that whole sequence? The backflip, very close to landing a strike illegally to the head of a grounded opponent. The guillotine came shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I made a joke in a tweet about it. I said, this is what I always say, the fundamentals. This is what it's all about. It was not that. It was not that.
Kenny, if I see a guy do a backflip to pass the guard, within the next month, I'm going to kill myself.
I'm telling you, man. But it shows that this is a guy who is, it goes beyond just winning. He wants to show his skills. Like, he's there to kind of entertain, which I can appreciate, because it takes some big balls to go. It's one thing to do it in training, but to do it live in a fight when it matters and to pull it off in that manner. And it wasn't just a backflip into a guard pass. Then he gets the guillotine off of it. You're like, man, these are the kind of things that favorite. He does things that very few fighters are able to do.
Yeah,
he's extremely agile and fast at 170 pounds. He just happens to be like 6'3" and walks around at like 210, 215. So he's in the right weight class now. But my goodness, his athleticism, dude, it's a cheat code. It's a cheat code.
Yeah, I mean, and think about that, K2. When that guy was on his back, you see him thinking, like, I got to get this off as quick as like. It must have been in his head. He turns around, he does a flip. Guy's having fun in there. And as far as the legality of that, I definitely would be accidental for sure, because you don't know where the fuck you're landing. So it's not like he did anything on purpose, did he? With the knee.
That's certainly not the first time he's done that in the octagon. I was sort of thinking about it as I was prepping the fight, because he has come close to landing illegally before, but inadvertent, accidental. I'm not suggesting that they would DQ him or take a point away. But you gotta be careful with your weapons a little bit. Like, I thought it was borderline fine. The review official said it was legal, and we move on, but you gotta be careful.
When you're like the flying Wallendas and you're jumping all over the place, you think he knows where anything's landing? He's just,
well, that's the thing, Ray.
he's
That's
just
the
going
kind of
airborne. He's going airborne. He didn't give a shit.
Ray,
He
that's
wanted that in the worst way.
It's crazy. I would say that's the kind of guy that if he's in your gym doing that stuff, like you could get hurt because now the person's going to take it personally. He's going to feel like you're spazzing out on them, and you're going to try to. So he's extremely dangerous. So it shows he just doesn't
100%.
care. Like he's a beast.
And he's
This
definitely
dude
the guy
lost. He lost to Tristan Connolly in 2019 and got DQ'd against Diego Sanchez in 2020. He's won 8 straight fights in the UFC, and he's not even fucking ranked. You know,
but think of this, man. What the fuck was Diego doing in there with that giant? Like they're not even remotely.
But Tristan Connolly's a lightweight.
Well,
but beat him.
But the cardio killed him. He didn't have the cardio down yet.
Right.
He spent all his energy dancing into the octagon. He definitely made corrections. 100%.
Yeah,
made corrections because Connolly just broke him. He was able to withstand. Whatever he had to dish out, and then he just, which I thought I loved that fight because normally I don't like the showboating guys, right? But this guy, he's now having so much. It's not even. I don't even think he's like in his head showboating. Like it's just part of his game.
There's
something
that's him.
Pleasurable about it. Now at the beginning, the dancing and everything, then you couldn't back it up. Maybe that was it. You got in there, you're gassing out. Now now the guy's for real, man. Now the guy's looking really good. He's up a weight class. He didn't come in bouncing off the rafters into this fight. Conserved his energy, but when he had to let it go, I thought it was fantastic. Really was.
Ken Flo smirking.
He's a beast, man. He's a beast. I'm just looking at. I mean, he should be in the top 15. I think
he will be.
Paul Craig's probably going to get out of there, right? Maybe, and then he might shift in there somewhere.
Michel Pereira. And maybe an acquired taste to some of the fan base because of some of the flash and dynamics.
Without a doubt.
But it really is who he is. He's been telling us he's the ultimate showman of the UFC since the first time he graced the octagon. But he's won 8 successive fights, as we mentioned. He won 5 in a row at welterweight, Kenny. Then he moves up. He's now won 3 in a row at 185 pounds. And because this fight was so quick, I still don't know the answer to the question that I posed off the top of that fight live on pay-per-view. Just how high is the ceiling? Just how good can this guy be? So I'll pose it to you guys. And I know this division is tough, but there are just a lot of fascinating matchups potentially for him. You know, like what's the Italian Dream Marvin Vettori doing? Like, I just feel like Michel Pereira, with his mix of skills and his ability to finish you in any number of different areas, like, I don't know. I feel like he can make a real concerted run at this middleweight championship, right? Like, you think Dricus du Plessis is like worlds better than Michel Pereira? I don't.
Well, athletically, they're not even in the same stratosphere.
Yeah.
I mean,
no.
Here's my take on Michel is that he's got the attributes to do whatever he wants. I do believe maybe the lack of fundamentals at some point in time might come back to bite him in the ass, but he's going to always be entertaining. He's always going to be a fun fight, but can he switch gears and get a little serious when he has to be? Like when he gets up in those tougher fights, it's going to be that's what I have to see. Like, you know, it's almost like I think Tony Ferguson, like he was just doing crazy shit and he got to where he got. And then once it came down to like, you know, moving your head and actually throwing combinations in the right way, it just wasn't there. And it could be the same for him, but he speaks well. He's articulate. He's had the right growing fights now. He's got everything out. I think he knows who he is. We got to give it a shot. He's going to be one of those guys. It could be hit or miss because he's going to do something crazy, could get you out of there. But I think at the higher end, we got to see what happens. And that's, but he's got a shot. He's got the tools. He's got the athleticism. There's absolutely no question about it. He could do things that nobody in that division can do. Can he make those things work for him to win a championship? That's my question.
Longest active UFC win streaks. Islam Makhachev, 13 in a row. Merab Dvalishvili, 10 in a row. Michel Pereira and Mobsar Evloev, 8 straight UFC wins.
Wow, crazy.
All right, Sean Shelby McMaynard, do something nice with Michel Pereira. All right, Anthony Lionheart-Smith in the featured bout as a huge underdog submits Vitor Petrino with a guillotine 2 minutes into round 1. First career win by guillotine for Anthony Lionheart-Smith, our good friend and colleague. 15th career win by submission. Now, Anthony Smith on March 2nd is working the UFC fight night at the Apex, right, Ken Flo? Vitor Petrino walks out for his fight against Tyson Pedro, sees Anthony Smith, and decides in that moment, if I beat Tyson Pedro, I'm going to fucking call out that guy, right? So he beats Tyson Pedro, and then he calls out Anthony Smith. Be careful what you wish for. You know, a lot of people wondered aloud if Vitor Petrino was as promising as Caio Borralho and Michel Pereira. We had all these big favorites, and yeah, tough moment for Petrino. We're going to celebrate Anthony Smith. We're going to get to some audio, but Ken Flo, Vitor Petrino just not at all ready for prime time, in my humble opinion.
No, poor decision making. You know, definitely wasn't the most technical fighter, right? But physically, he made up for it with his physicality and things like that. But just this was a series of poor decisions, one after another. And, you know, you have to have the composure and the ability and the experience to be able to reset when you need to kind of clear your head or just kind of reanalyze what you're doing. And it seemed like he just rushed in, got emotional, and threw himself into a guillotine choke. And everything from the defense to the panicking just was not a good look. And I don't know. And for Anthony Smith, there's times where Anthony can lose to anybody in the division, or he can maybe beat anybody in the division. You know, he is so difficult to predict how he's going to perform out there. But here he showed he's a finisher and got it done against what I thought was a dangerous Petrino, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, the fight IQ wise was really that was just a poor. He just stuck his head in there. I mean, I'm not saying a basic submission, but
yeah,
he looked like he had like what Kenny's saying. He didn't look like he was doing anything right. How to address it, how to respect it, even at the beginning. It was almost like he was. Maybe that's where Brazil killed him, because he probably thought he was just invincible. And he hadn't lost yet. And I'm not going to lose. And man, next thing you know, he's tapping like a typewriter. So hats off to Anthony Smith, though, going into hostile territory.
Oh, yeah.
Again, great guy. You know, he's a good guy. And it's good to see him get that win. But that was, it must have felt good for him, because I'm not saying it was a gift, but that guy definitely stuck his head right in there. Didn't look like he gave a shit.
And for Anthony, coming off of that knockout loss, man, that was a devastating loss. Yeah. To look like he did, I think showed just how mentally tough he is.
So I was fucking hammered last night with Anthony Smith, right? I was far drunker than him, but he was talking us through some of Petrino's mistakes. I forget a lot of that conversation because the gentleman Jack was just fucking burning my esophagus. But Anthony Smith has had 57 pro MMA fights, and this is one of the few in which he exited without a scratch on him. Let us now hear from Anthony Lionheart Smith on how he saw things last night against the no longer undefeated Vitor Petrino.
I mean, maybe. I mean, people are always going to be haters, but, like, at the end of the day, like, I just proved myself right. I told you guys there's levels to this. Like, he made about 9 bad decisions in that short amount of time. And you force people to make a decision, and then I already have an answer for whatever he makes. So he's a tough kid. He's inexperienced. He's got all the physical tools. He'll be right. He'll be all right.
John, I thought we were going to get you guys at the bar. What he said. I don't want to hear an interview.
Exactly.
I want you all jacked out of your mind talking to the
I'm
guy.
sorry. Yeah, I felt like sticking my iPhone in Anthony Smith's face last night probably wasn't the right move. You know. What's Cody going to do now?
Yeah. Oh, there he is. Wow.
Look at that speed.
Man,
the mobility.
I take it you were a good hopscotch player when you were younger.
John's doing those agility ladders for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know.
He just did the agility ladder for us.
Of course, the one time I sit in filling in on the UFC's official weigh-in show, we get samba lessons from these like half-naked Brazilian women. So that was very exciting.
It's a tough job you have, John. It's a tough job.
It is a really difficult job. You know what I am realizing, though? I need to learn Brazilian Portuguese like fucking yesterday, you know?
You need me on the road with you, John.
These women,
you
know?
I used to be Jon Anik's official translator in Brazil, by the way.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so one of these women, right, and certainly a lot of the fan base, and I probably shouldn't be doing this right now, but one of these women, right, the one in blue, right? I mean, me and the fan base are like in love with this woman, right? So I didn't use my 2 contractual tickets in Rio de Janeiro, but I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, I should just go over there and offer her my 2 tickets, you know? but all I know how to say in Brazilian Portuguese is like toilet, excuse me, I'm sorry, and hello.
Just put it all
So,
together. You would have been fine.
right.
Yeah.
Com licença, desculpe. Fuck.
Banheiro,
Trust,
por favor.
trust me, John, all he had to do was wave those 2 tickets in front of her face. She would have understood what was going on.
Or just fucking take my shirt off or something, you know? All right.
Wow, he's frisky, very frisky today, Kenny.
Real quick, Kenny and Cody, if you have time to populate the light heavyweight rankings in our private chat, that would be fantastic. We were talking last night in Bruce Buffer's room, actually. Buff was fucking on one last night after the pay-per-view. So Anthony Smith versus Jan Blachowicz. Now, Jan Blachowicz has had a very invasive shoulder surgery, and I don't know how soon Jan Blachowicz would be back. But I feel like that's a guy that Anthony Smith has never fought. He deserves to have that fight. Blachowicz is probably 1 or 2 in the division as far as the rankings are concerned. And Anthony Smith just put his number 10 ranking on the line, Kenny, against an undefeated Brazilian who was like a 5-1 favorite to beat him. And, of course, an unranked guy. So, for me, Yuri Prochazka is the number 1 contender. All indications are that Alex Pineda's next title defense is going to come against Yuri Prochazka and not Magomed Ankalaev. Jan Blachowicz is 4. Anthony Smith is 10. Kenny, what do you think about Anthony Smith welcoming Jan Blachowicz back to the light heavyweight division when healthy?
I think I would love to see that fight. I think that's a fight that makes sense. That's a fight that Anthony Smith can win. And for Jan Blachowicz, that's a big challenge, man. So, yeah, I like it.
I mean, you got Nikita Krylov at number 6 in the world. Maybe that fight has some appeal, but we'll see. I do think that it's not out of the realm of possibility if Anthony Smith wins 2 more fights that he does fight Alex Pineda, because he not only wants that fight in the worst way, but as an analyst, Anthony Smith has been critical of Alex Pineda, even if, the adjective simple or simplistic as far as his game is not necessarily an insult.
Right.
There's definitely a foundation, Ray, for a fight between Anthony Smith and Alex Pineda if, in fact, Smith can string together a couple more wins. So. All right, no comment from Ray.
Oh, no. That would be
all right.
That would be great. Either fight is great. I'm sorry.
Hey, will you sign my shirt when I get home? Will you take a Sharpie and sign the top of your forehead?
Of course.
You guys remember during the pandemic when Longo grew his hair out? I was looking back at a clip today. I don't know why it populated my feed. You look fantastic with that long hair. I think you might want to let that go again.
I might go again.
All right. Couple more things I want to hit on from UFC 301. Ray, you got a couple more minutes or you want to go?
I'm good to go. I got nothing to do but go to the gym.
So in the featured prelim, Kenny, Joe Anderson Brito defeated Jack Shore. It was a doctor stoppage by TKO that came at 3:35 of round 2. And you don't want to take anything away from Joe Anderson Brito. Half the guys in the truck think he's going to be the next UFC featherweight champion, right? He fought brilliantly. He is so fun to watch. But Jack Shore, I felt like, was a little bit wronged by this stoppage, right? His leg wasn't fractured. You had the ringside physician like pushing on the bone, trying to see if it was fractured. Not every day you see a fight stopped by a doctor due to a cut on a leg.
Yeah, this is for me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry. So I felt, it was kind of an odd one. It was a literal hole in his shin. I wonder if there was a fear of massive infection, right? I mean, the octagon's filthy, the bodies are filthy.
100%.
You have a huge open wound in Brazil. I mean, what I mean by that is now you're in a hot environment and then you have to travel, take a plane back. By that time, you have a massive infection. So I don't think they wanted to take any risks with that. That's probably where they were coming from. So I understand that level. A cut typically in something like your leg, should it cause a stoppage? No. I think it really was the fear of infection more than anything else. That was a big one, and those are rare. Like it looked like a literal hole. Like sometimes you see it more of a tear, but that was just a nasty hole that was not going to stop bleeding. And but Brito is so explosive, man. This kid is very, very dangerous and fun to watch.
Yeah, sorry, Bruce Buffer just called me. I'm telling you.
Yeah, Brucey. What do we got?
He's calling me again. Come on, hang on a second.
Let's go. We got to get him on.
Hey, I'm live on the air right now. Can I call you in like 30 minutes?
Oh, come on. That's when you put him on speaker.
Put him on speaker.
Bruce, you on speaker with the ANIKFLORIAN podcast.
I'll call you.
Tell Buff I said hello. Hey, dude, tell Buff I said hello. Dude, tell Buff I said hello.
Ken Flo says hi.
Thank you.
He was going to stop by my room. So yeah, he's getting some acai downstairs at Golden Sucos.
He's I imagine he stops by your room. He's in one of those bathrobes.
I love the buff up there.
Remember, like the one you you
Yep,
came
he
out
comes in the bathroom. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Up Fight
fucking
Island. Yeah.
pipe, the fucking pipe like Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Cody,
Right.
can we
Coming
get in the
for you.
lower third? Cody, can you put in the lower third that Buff's going to Golden Sucos to get an acai?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Breaking news.
But he's seeing the doctor, stick his thumb in Jack Shore's shin. And you're right, Kenny, about the infection. And I mentioned on the broadcast, Austin Hubbard back in the day had that compartment leg syndrome where they had to completely slice open his leg, and those
Not
things can
good.
be fatal. So I was thinking
Yeah.
about that, right? When you have all
Yep.
sorts of tension in your body and you need sort of fluids to escape. So, a tough setback for Jack Shore, but Joe Anderson Brito was the better man. And it's an interesting fighter, I think, Ray and Kenny at 145 pounds. Ray, what do you think about this Joe Anderson Brito cat?
Hey, he looked like a world beater, man. He was definitely a step ahead of him, more explosive, quicker, stronger. Again, I would have liked to seen the fight hit the third round, see where he would have been. It's hard to carry that energy like that, but he looked good. And I'll tell you, the injury, and I have seen that before, he's not kicking with that leg for a long time. Like, think about how that is to heal that. And Kenny's right. We'd have to get a doctor on here, but you don't want that. You don't want a bone infection. You don't want a blood. You don't want any infection. And that thing is, I think because it's on the leg, it doesn't appear to be that bad, but I think that was a really bad. You're sticking your finger and touching the bone.
Yeah.
I think it's just, you got to fight a different day, because those are the injuries that, they're not common, but when they happen, they could take you out for a year.
That's what happened to Damian Maya. That's what happened to Damian Maya. He had a cut and got a bone infection, and it was in the hospital for a little while.
It never goes away.
Yeah.
So
Luke Rockhold,
I hope he's all right.
Had a shin issue, and it was years. Crazy, just drainage and all sorts of brutal things. All right, at Ray Longo MMA on Instagram, and I will tell you, Ray, so your old Instagram account, as you well know, got hacked, right?
Right.
And that motherfucker reached out to me at like 5 o'clock this morning. He's like, "Hey, John," and I thought it was you.
Man, I tell you, but I would text you though. That's like, because I'm getting a lot of those.
No, you're right. You're right. I don't know why I thought it was you.
I'm going to tell you something. Somebody in the gym offered the guy $500 for the password back, and I think I got to talk to the guy, because ever since he offered him the money, the guy started in again. Like he said, this guy's a complete piece of shit.
Really,
what I
he's
mean?
trying to raise his rate.
Yeah, right. I guess I don't even know what the hell he's doing, but I got to talk to this guy today, see what the hell he.
Wait, so that's not you? I've been sending this guy 5,000 every week.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was you.
It's really, but he researched, like, again, it's crazy. I don't know. Whatever. I'm so done with social media.
He's an absolute scumbag, no question about it.
Yeah.
You got to, if you see him, Ray, you got to go Happy Gilmore, pull his shirt over his head, and fucking punch him in the face.
No.
All right, at Ray Longo MMA, my man, we appreciate the time and you guiding us through this UFC 301 recap. Have an outstanding Cinco de Mayo. Sweat it out a little bit, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hasta la vista, guys. But wait, one quick thing. That guy,
please.
What was his name? Rufy, the other guy from the
Mauricio Rufy.
Dude, did he get the bonus by any chance?
He did get one of 4 bonuses, along with Michel Pereira, Caio Bojalho, and Alessandro Costa.
See, like, out of everybody, everybody's good, but that guy looks like he's got the X factor right now. I mean,
I missed that fight.
And I'll tell you, Dean Thomas, I think, had a great night. I think he was on point the whole night, because it was a little Conor McGregor, pulling and hitting and some of the stuff. And I think he made a couple of good calls. So hats off to Dean Thomas. But I like that kid Rufio out of the box, man. It's a guy to watch for sure. So
no doubt about it.
And Milwaukee's tough. He's a tough guy. He's a steady Eddie grinder, basic guy, but he got the shit beat out of him.
Man. Yeah, this
Rufy
is
without getting touched, the other guy. So
that
was a good fight. So he deserved the bonus.
Had a win over one of Islam Makhachev's primary training partners on the Contender Series, a fight that he was losing, and man, did he show even more progression and get past Jamie Blarkey. Yeah, Ken Flo, you should watch that one back. Dean Thomas actually was comparing Roofy to Conor McGregor.
Right.
So,
right.
Oh wow. Okay.
I think it's. I think that was pretty accurate too.
Yeah, I thought it was apt. You know,
some of the
I was
quotes-
actually thinking Caio Borralho at the time, his teammate, and I saw some similarities. But as soon as Dean said Conor, I was like, oh, I see it. You
Yeah,
know?
he was hitting and not getting hit. He looked really
That's
good.
cool.
All right.
But
Speaking
anyway,
of looking
guys,
really good.
yeah. Oh no, it don't look
Fucking
any better
you.
than this. No, it doesn't look any better than this.
No, it really doesn't.
It really
Although if you
just
saw my
doesn't.
Instagram story over the weekend, somebody posted a picture of you and Matt Serra training from your prime. I mean, you look like you had spent 18 hours in a tanning bed before that photo shoot. You look good.
What year was that?
Probably 20 years ago.
74?
No, Kenny, this is getting obscene at this point. Like it really is. It's actually getting weird.
It looked like early 90s, right? Was it early 90s? Something
It was a long time ago.
I would think, it's in the it's definitely in the 90s.
Yeah.
But what? 90s, 2000, right around there, late 90s.
Hey, Ray, you ever see the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. See a doctor and get rid of it. We got to go.
Why is he shooting at the cans? He hates the cans. Guys, take it easy, guys.
Like it. I love it. Love it. Perfect. We don't have to change this at all. Ray, get the fuck out of here. We got to go, man. Kenny's got a seminar in like 21 minutes. Ray Longo Minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. All right, JonAnik.com, promo code UFC301 is still live for 20% off of all of your Anik and Florian podcast merchandise, including this Ray Longo Minute shirt. Also, all of the international One More Sleep designs are out. We're going to launch Croatia pretty soon, but Brazil and Ireland and the United States of America, the UK, those are all there as well. 20% off your entire order at JonAnik.com with code UFC301. Also, check out KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. Where are you today, Ken Flo, in the greater Southern California area?
I'll be teaching at Marina Del Rey at Uprise MMA, but I'm in Santa Monica.
All right, at Kenny Florian on Instagram. He'll be providing updates over the course of the next several days or so. Also, a couple things on the way out. The Leafs have fallen. Congratulations to the Boston Bruins. I know a lot of people don't like Boston sports fans, but Kenny and I, born and raised in Massachusetts, I lived there for 32 years, and to be calling UFC 301, getting updates on a Game 7, and to have the Bruins win was just a huge injection of energy when they were able to get that done. And I also just want to thank the fan base, and I know a lot of people were sort of acknowledging me this weekend that I set the record for calling the most fights of anybody in UFC history. And, you know, this is sort of one of those longevity things, right? You stick around long enough. I walked into the pre-meal before the show and my boss Zach Candido was like, hey, did you see this thing? And he was like, I want to check the numbers, but I guess at UFC 297 I called like my 2800th UFC fight, and it had me thinking my little fighter cards, you know, I've done almost 6,000 of those, you know, and just kind of keep your head down and focus on the work and lean into the work. And you know, it's a tricky business, sports broadcasting, so I feel pretty good to have stuck around this long. Hopefully we can get to 3,000. You never know.
Well, you do it masterfully, my friend. Congratulations. It's an amazing milestone. It's a testament to your hard work, man. And I hope you can do another 3,000. So,
well, and I'm just hoping that at some point you're back on the sticks with me. But we got to get on out of here. Thanks to our producer, Cody Merrow. Thanks to Ray Longo, the great Ken Flo. Don't forget, remember the show on the Anik and Florian podcast YouTube channel with my twin bro, Jason Anik and Bilal Muhammad. And also check out the Show Me the Money pod with Gilbert Burns, Matty Betts, and Hanato Moicano. I should be making an appearance with those guys maybe as early as tomorrow to recap UFC 301. And we'll be back with you guys to preview Derek Lewis and Rodrigo Nascimento probably on Wednesday on this very channel. Thank you all for indulging us in this live Anik and Florian podcast UFC 301 recap. For Ken Flo, I'm Jon Anik. We'll talk to you in a few days. Until then, wheels up. Yo, later.
He had that from about